The name Hercule Poirot instantly evokes the image of a man whose intellect seems almost superhuman. A detective whose mind operates like a well-oiled machine, unraveling mysteries that would stump ordinary minds. But Poirot's story is not just about brilliance or the cases he solved. It is about the journey of a man who honed his extraordinary analytical skills and developed a philosophy of understanding human nature to uncover the truth. Every personality has a story, and every story has its foundation, and Hercule Poirot's foundation was far from ordinary. Poirot was originally from Belgium. In a Europe unsettled by war, political tension, and social unrest, a young Hercule Poirot was quietly discovering the nature of life and human behavior. Few realize that Poirot initially worked in the police force. He was not born a detective, but rather a man who often repeated to himself, "Careful observation is the key to understanding the world." Perhaps this was the very first seed of the genius detective he would become. In his youth, Poirot was often considered peculiar. He always dressed meticulously, cared deeply about the perfect arrangement of his mustache, and maintained habits so exacting that others assumed they were products of vanity or ego. For Poirot, however, these were not mere eccentricities. They were discipline. He believed that just as a person's clothing and outward appearance reflect their inner state of mind, order and cleanliness in a detective's life sharpen the intellect and focus necessary for solving complex cases. During this period, one event occurred that would forever change Poirot's life. A burglary took place in his town, seemingly impossible to solve. The police were at a loss, with no clues and no witnesses. While most considered the case hopeless, Poirot became intensely interested. He meticulously observed every detail: the doors, the angle of the windows, faint footprints on the ground, and perhaps most importantly, the statements of the household members. Every small piece of information, seemingly trivial, became part of his growing puzzle. It was during this case that Poirot realized a crucial truth: every human leaves behind patterns, consciously or unconsciously. Whether it is the scent of clothing, the manner of walking, or the choice of words, people leave subtle traces of themselves that reveal far more than they intend. This insight sparked the detective in him. When he presented his theory to the police, they initially dismissed it. Poirot explained that the burglar had entered not through the obvious door, but through a small, overlooked vent. The evidence was subtle: marks on the vent corner, undisturbed dust patterns, and faint scuffs that others had ignored. The police were astonished that he had deduced this from such tiny details. This early success foreshadowed Poirot's extraordinary career. He had discovered that patience, careful observation, and a logical mind could solve the unsolvable. Following the resolution of this case, Poirot received an offer to work as an assistant within the police department. From this point onward, Hercule Poirot began his journey as the detective we now recognize, a man who approached each case like a carefully constructed puzzle, analyzing human behavior, subtle actions, and minute details that others overlooked. People often assumed he was simply listening to conversations or watching movements. But in reality, he read each person like an open book, interpreting gestures, tones, and even hesitation as key pieces of evidence. Poirot's first major murder case solidified his reputation. The city's prominent businessman was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The case appeared impossible: locked doors, sealed windows, and no signs of forced entry. Yet, Poirot examined even the smallest traces: the arrangement of furniture, a slightly disturbed shelf, faint smudges on the carpet, and understood the movements of the culprit. By connecting these minor details which everyone else had dismissed, he discovered the truth. And when asked how he solved it, he calmly explained, "It is a matter of logic, not luck. The little gray cells never lie." This event marked a turning point in Poirot's life. It was not merely a solved case. It was a confirmation of his method and philosophy. From that moment, Every investigation, no matter how small or large, became an opportunity to apply the meticulous discipline, careful observation, and logical reasoning that would define his legendary career. Poirot learned that no case is trivial. Every puzzle requires the same degree of attention, regardless of whether it involves a missing ring or a high-profile murder. As Poirot's career advanced, he refined his methodology further. He realized that solving crimes required more than physical clues. Understanding human psychology was equally essential. Every suspect's movement, hesitation, and choice of words revealed patterns. By mapping these psychological cues, Poirot could anticipate motives and uncover truths hidden beneath deception. This approach made him not just a solver of crimes, but a master of human behavior, a skill that would elevate him above any ordinary detective. Even as Poirot gained recognition, he remained disciplined and structured. Every day, from his grooming routines to his careful attire and study of cases, contributed to the sharpness of his mind. These habits, which some considered eccentric, were the tools that allowed him to maintain focus and precision. They became inseparable from his genius, reflecting the harmony between order, observation, and intellect that made him exceptional. Poirot's early cases laid the foundation for his legendary status. Each challenge, from thefts to murders, reinforced his philosophy. Logic and careful observation, combined with understanding human nature, can solve even the most baffling mysteries. His analytical approach, systematic thinking, and unwavering patience distinguished him from every other detective of his time. And as Agatha Christie introduced him to the world, Hercule Poirot became more than just a fictional character. He became an icon, a representation of the power of intellect, reasoning, and insight into human behavior. By the time Poirot began handling high-profile cases beyond Belgium, he had fully developed his approach. Observation, logical deduction, and attention to human psychology were no longer just methods. They were a philosophy, a way of interpreting the world that allowed him to see connections and truths invisible to others. Each mystery became a demonstration of his genius. Each solved case a testament to the meticulous application of reason, patience, and empathy. And thus, Part 1 concludes with the birth of Hercule Poirot, the ordinary Belgian man who, through discipline, observation, and extraordinary intellect, transformed into the world's most unique and legendary detective. His journey was only beginning, but the foundation of brilliance, method, and insight had already been laid, setting the stage for the legendary cases and myth. As Hercule Poirot's career progressed, his fame grew, but for him, recognition was never the goal. Every case was a challenge, an opportunity to apply his meticulous methods and understand the complexities of human nature. His brilliance lay not only in noticing physical clues, but in interpreting subtle psychological patterns, revealing truths that were hidden in plain sight. This part explores some of his most famous cases and the genius that made him a legendary detective. One of Poirot's earliest and most celebrated cases was the mysterious affair at Styles, involving the sudden murder of a wealthy family patriarch. The case was highly complex because each family member and household staff had plausible alibis, and the evidence seemed insufficient. Poirot approached the problem systematically. He observed every small detail, analyzed inconsistencies in statements, and deduced motives that were invisible to others. Even minor elements, a misplaced object, a faint mark on the floor, or an apparently irrelevant comment, became essential clues. By piecing these together logically, Poirot revealed that the murderer was a family member, acting out of both personal and financial motives. This case demonstrated not only his deductive genius, but also his philosophy. Every detail, however minor, can unlock the truth. Perhaps Poirot's most iconic case was Murder on the Orient Express, which challenged him ethically and intellectually. A high-profile businessman was murdered aboard a train, stranded in a remote area. with each passenger appearing to have an airtight alibi. Poirot meticulously observed their statements, mannerisms, and emotional responses, discerning subtle contradictions and hidden motives. What made this case extraordinary was the moral complexity. Every suspect had a reason, and justice was not a simple matter of punishing a single culprit. Poirot's solution combined logic with an understanding of collective human responsibility, highlighting his ability to balance intellect with empathy. Another remarkable case was Death on the Nile, involving a wealthy heiress murdered during a cruise on the Nile. Each suspect had both motive and opportunity, making the case extremely intricate. Poirot applied his trademark method: observe every interaction, question delicately, and map psychological patterns. He noted the subtle tensions between passengers, personal rivalries, and hidden fears. These seemingly minor observations became the key to solving the case. Again, Poirot demonstrated that a true detective must combine logical reasoning with insight into human behavior to uncover the truth. Poirot's career was not limited to murders alone. He also investigated blackmail, thefts, and missing person cases, applying the same methodology consistently. Patience, observation, and systematic analysis were constants, regardless of the type of crime. He believed that every case was a puzzle to be solved logically, and that no anomaly, however insignificant it seemed, should be ignored. This approach ensured that he remained unbeatable, whether the challenge was straightforward or extraordinarily complex. Even as Poirot gained fame, he remained disciplined and methodical in his personal life. His daily routines, precise grooming, careful attire, and the study of past cases were not mere eccentricities, but tools to maintain focus and clarity of thought. These habits sharpened his mind and supported the meticulous observation required in his work. His attention to detail extended to everything he did, from arranging furniture in a room to analyzing the smallest gestures of a suspect. These patterns of discipline and observation became inseparable from his genius. Poirot's fame grew as readers and audiences became captivated by his intellectual rigor and unique style. Every case presented suspense, a mental challenge, and a study of human behavior, making him more than just a fictional detective. He became an icon. Agatha Christie crafted each mystery carefully to showcase Poirot's methodical thinking and psychological insight, creating a character who represented the perfect balance of logic, patience, and empathy. Throughout his career, Poirot proved that no case was too complex if approached with observation, careful analysis, and attention to human psychology. From his earliest successes to high-profile international investigations, he demonstrated that understanding motive, character, and behavior was as important as any physical evidence. Each case refined his abilities, reinforced his methods, and elevated his reputation as the world's most remarkable detective. By the end of this period in his career, Hercule Poirot had firmly established himself as an intellectual phenomenon. He was not only a master of deduction, but also a master of human understanding. His early cases, his discipline, and his analytical brilliance laid the groundwork for decades of extraordinary detective work, making him a timeless figure in mystery literature. Ods that would follow. Hercule Poirot's brilliance was not simply in noticing clues or solving puzzles. It lay in the extraordinary way he combined logic, observation, and psychological insight. Unlike ordinary detectives, Poirot approached every case as a mental exercise, a challenge to map not only the physical evidence, but the inner workings of the human mind. His famous little gray cells were his constant tool, a metaphor for the intellectual rigor and careful analysis that allowed him to detect patterns invisible to others. Every thought, gesture, hesitation, or slip of the tongue became a potential key to solving the mystery. Poirot's approach always began with meticulous observation. He did not rush to conclusions or rely on hunches. Instead, he scrutinized the environment, the behavior of suspects, and even the arrangement of objects with an almost obsessive precision. For example, the placement of a chair or the angle of a teacup could reveal far more than eyewitness testimony. He believed that every action, no matter how trivial it appeared, was intentional or unconsciously revealing. To Poirot, nothing was ever random, and every detail could serve as a bridge to uncovering the truth. Equally important was his use of psychological analysis. Poirot understood that humans are often governed by patterns of thought, emotion, and habit. He studied reactions, tone of voice, and subtle facial expressions, interpreting them as indicators of truth or deception. While a casual observer might miss these signs, Poirot's keen intellect allowed him to connect psychological cues with factual evidence. His understanding of human nature enabled him to predict behaviors, anticipate lies, and identify the guilty. Even when physical evidence was scarce or misleading, Poirot's deduction techniques were also remarkably systematic. He often created a mental framework for each case, categorizing information into motive, opportunity, and behavior. By isolating consistencies, contradictions, or hidden patterns, he could construct a timeline and sequence of events that led to the solution. What made his method unique was the balance between logic and intuition. Every deduction was based on reasoning, yet he allowed himself to consider the human element, the impulses, fears, and desires that often drive crime. Another hallmark of Poirot's method was his patience. Unlike many detectives who might force a conclusion prematurely, Poirot waited for information to emerge naturally, observing behavior over time. He encouraged suspects to speak, often allowing them to reveal information through their own words or gestures. He recognized that under subtle pressure or casual conversation, even the most careful liar might inadvertently disclose a clue. This patience, combined with relentless attention to detail, was one of the main reasons he remained unbeatable throughout his career. Poirot's genius also lay in his ability to anticipate deception. He understood that suspects often attempt to manipulate investigators, creating false trails or feigning ignorance. To counter this, Poirot deliberately tested statements, posed questions in unexpected ways, and observed responses closely. He watched for micro-expressions, contradictions, and behavioral slips that others would overlook. Through this method, he could identify motives, uncover hidden relationships, and reveal the true culprit before anyone else suspected. One of the most fascinating aspects of Poirot's method was his ethical perspective. He rarely judged morally. He focused on uncovering truth. Even in cases where legal justice was ambiguous or multiple suspects were involved, Poirot prioritized understanding and revealing reality. This approach allowed him to navigate complex cases such as Murder on the Orient Express, where collective human responsibility intersected with legal definitions. In these situations, Poirot's decisions reflected not just logic, but insight into human morality and societal values. Poirot also developed a skill for recreating crime scenes mentally. He would visualize the sequence of events, positioning suspects, timing actions, and reconstructing movements. Every object, footprint, and minor disturbance was incorporated into this mental simulation. By doing so, he could see patterns and connections that were invisible to anyone else. This ability to combine abstract reasoning with meticulous detail gave him an almost prescient understanding of the events surrounding a crime. Finally, Poirot's unique style of investigation, blending intellect, observation, psychology, and ethics, established a template for detective fiction and influenced generations of readers and writers. His cases demonstrate that solving a mystery requires more than intelligence. It demands empathy, patience, and an unyielding commitment to uncovering truth. Each case is a lesson in methodical reasoning, human insight, and disciplined thought, illustrating why Hercule Poirot remains a timeless symbol of detective genius. Part 3 concludes with an appreciation of Poirot's advanced deductive techniques. His approach was comprehensive, logical analysis, behavioral observation, ethical reasoning, and mental reconstruction of events combined to create a detective capable of solving seemingly impossible mysteries. Through his mind, readers witness the power of intellect intertwined with human understanding, solidifying his place as one of literature's greatest detectives. Hercule Poirot's genius is perhaps best illustrated through his most ingenious and challenging cases, where ordinary methods fail and only meticulous reasoning and psychological insight can reveal the truth. One such case was the murder of Roger Ackroyd, which shocked the world not only because of the clever crime, but because of Poirot's method of solving it. In this case, a wealthy man was found dead in his home, seemingly the victim of a straightforward murder. Yet, the evidence was contradictory and every alibi appeared airtight. Poirot, as always, began with observation. He noted details others ignored, such as the placement of objects in the room, the subtle inconsistencies in statements, and the smallest behaviors that revealed hidden motives. His process was systematic, examining motive, opportunity, and psychological patterns of each individual. Poirot's real skill lay in connecting seemingly unrelated details. In the Ackroyd case, he noticed inconsistencies in handwriting, the timing of letters, and the behavior of a servant who seemed loyal yet inadvertently revealed tension. Poirot reconstructed the crime, understanding the sequence of events and anticipating the murderer's moves. By combining logical deduction with human psychology, he exposed a truth that no one else had suspected. The brilliance of Poirot was not just in catching the criminal, but in revealing the hidden structure of deception, showing how small inconsistencies could lead to the ultimate solution. Another remarkable case was Death on the Nile, which tested Poirot's ability to interpret human emotion as a clue. A wealthy heiress was murdered aboard a cruise ship, and every passenger seemed to have a motive. Poirot's approach was meticulous. He observed every interaction, noted subtle reactions, and mapped the relationships between passengers. Each laugh, hesitation, or glance became a piece of the puzzle. He realized that crimes are rarely isolated actions. They are the culmination of complex human interactions, emotions, and hidden grievances. By understanding these psychological dimensions, Poirot reconstructed the timeline of events, identified the true culprit, and solved a case that appeared unsolvable. Murder on the Orient Express provides yet another example of Poirot's ingenuity. Here, the challenge was compounded by ethical ambiguity. Multiple suspects were involved in a single murder, each with their own justification. Poirot did not rush to judgment. He observed, analyzed, and patiently listened to every account. He detected subtle contradictions, signs of concealment, and emotional cues that revealed hidden truths. Ultimately, Poirot's solution balanced logic with moral insight, illustrating that understanding human nature is as crucial as physical evidence. This case highlighted a recurring principle in his work. Truth is often layered, complex, and intertwined with human behavior. Poirot's methodology often included reconstructing events in his mind. He would visualize the crime scene, imagine each suspect's movements, and test scenarios against observed evidence. This mental simulation allowed him to predict behavior, detect inconsistencies, and identify motives. Even the smallest detail, a footprint, a misplaced object, or a minor gesture, could alter the reconstruction and guide him toward the correct conclusion. For Poirot, nothing was irrelevant. Everything contributed to the logical framework he constructed around the crime. In addition to murder cases, Poirot also solved thefts, blackmail, and missing person cases with the same meticulous approach. One example was The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, a case involving a stolen gem. Poirot analyzed each suspect's habits, motivations, and reactions, noting subtle deviations from normal behavior. By combining logical deduction with a deep understanding of human psychology, he reconstructed the sequence of events and identified the thief. Even when evidence seemed minimal, Poirot's insight into motive and behavior allowed him to see what others could not. Poirot's genius lay in the combination of intellect, patience, observation, and empathy. He did not rely on luck or intuition alone. He relied on evidence, human understanding, and systematic analysis. Each case demonstrated his unique ability to see connections others missed, interpret psychological patterns, and apply logic consistently. His work reveals that great detective work requires both mental acuity and a deep understanding of human nature. Part 4 illustrates that Poirot's success was never accidental. Every solved case reflects his disciplined methodology, advanced observation, and unparalleled ability to combine reasoning with insight into human behavior. Through these examples, it becomes clear why Hercule Poirot is not only one of fiction's greatest detectives, but also a timeless model of analytical thinking, observation, and psychological mastery. One of the most remarkable aspects of Hercule Poirot's detective work is his mastery of human psychology. Unlike other investigators who rely solely on physical evidence or straightforward questioning, Poirot understands that people are often governed by emotion, ego, fear, and habit. He knows that truth is rarely spoken directly. It is concealed behind layers of deception, misdirection, and carefully crafted lies. His genius lies in his ability to see through these layers, to read subtle cues, and to use them strategically during interrogations. Poirot approaches suspects not with aggression, but with patience and observation. He studies their posture, tone of voice, and gestures before asking a single question. He often waits for the suspect to speak first, believing that under minimal pressure, people reveal more than they intend. A hesitation, a shift in gaze, or a slip of the tongue can be as revealing as physical evidence. To Poirot, these psychological signs are vital pieces of the puzzle, and he integrates them with facts to reconstruct the sequence of events. A hallmark of Poirot's interrogation technique is his subtle manipulation of suspects' behavior. He sometimes presents a hypothesis or a misleading suggestion to provoke a reaction. This technique is not deception for its own sake, but a method to observe responses and expose contradictions. For instance, by suggesting that he already knows a detail incorrectly, he can watch whether the suspect corrects him or hesitates, revealing knowledge or guilt indirectly. This method demonstrates Poirot's profound understanding of human nature. Most people, when confronted strategically, cannot maintain a perfect facade. Poirot also uses empathy and tact as tools. He knows that confrontation often leads to defensiveness, which can obscure truth. Instead, he engages with suspects in a calm and respectful manner, allowing them to feel safe enough to speak. During these conversations, Poirot observes everything: micro-expressions, subtle shifts in language, inconsistencies in narrative, and even nonverbal cues like fidgeting or blinking. Each observation is analyzed carefully, and together they reveal a pattern of behavior that points to the truth. One illustrative case of his psychological expertise is Hickory Hall, where Poirot investigates a series of thefts in a household with multiple suspects. Rather than relying solely on fingerprints or eyewitness accounts, he observes how each household member reacts under questioning. He notes who appears anxious, who volunteers unnecessary information, and who is unusually calm. By analyzing these reactions, he identifies not only the thief, but also the motive and opportunity. The case demonstrates that understanding human behavior can be as decisive as analyzing physical clues. Poirot also frequently employs the strategy of reconstructing events mentally before confronting suspects. He visualizes the sequence of actions, predicts how individuals would behave, and prepares questions to test these predictions. This mental simulation allows him to detect lies or inconsistencies even before the suspect speaks. By combining logical reasoning with psychological anticipation, Poirot ensures that each interrogation is a controlled test. Revealing the hidden truth through carefully managed dialogue, Another key aspect of Poirot's psychological approach is his attention to the smallest detail of human behavior. He knows that emotions leave subtle traces, a twitch, a glance, a change in voice pitch, that indicate guilt, fear, or deception. By focusing on these seemingly minor cues, Poirot can read motives and intentions accurately. These insights enable him to reconstruct events fully, even when tangible evidence is minimal or deliberately misleading. Poirot's interrogation methods are not merely technical. They reflect his philosophical approach to crime. He does not seek to humiliate or coerce. His goal is to uncover the truth and restore order. By understanding suspect psychology and manipulating the environment and conversation strategically, he allows human nature to reveal itself naturally. This approach is both humane and intellectually rigorous, highlighting why Poirot remains unmatched in detective fiction. Part 5 illustrates that Hercule Poirot's detective genius extends beyond deduction and observation. His mastery of psychology, strategic questioning, and subtle manipulation of suspects' behavior is central to his ability to solve cases that seem impossible. Through patience, empathy, and careful analysis of human emotion, Poirot demonstrates that understanding the mind is as crucial as understanding evidence. Cementing his reputation as a Hercule, Poirot's true brilliance shines not only in his observation and understanding of human psychology, but also in his unmatched ability to recognize patterns and solve intricate logical puzzles. Each case he faces is more than a crime. It is a puzzle designed to test his little gray cells, and his success depends on seeing connections that others miss. For Poirot, every detail is part of a larger pattern, and his systematic approach allows him to reconstruct events with precision and clarity. One of Poirot's defining techniques is the meticulous categorization of information. He separates facts, motives, alibis, and behavioral observations into mental compartments. By analyzing each element individually and in relation to the others, he constructs a comprehensive framework for the case. This structured approach ensures that no detail is overlooked, and it allows him to detect inconsistencies, hidden relationships, and concealed motives. Each fact becomes a piece of a larger mosaic, gradually revealing the truth. Pattern recognition is central to Poirot's method. He has an extraordinary ability to identify subtle repetitions, anomalies, and sequences within complex scenarios. For instance, in the ABC murders, Poirot notices a sequence in the locations and timing of murders that suggests a deliberate alphabetical pattern. Most investigators might overlook this, dismissing it as coincidence. But Poirot identifies the pattern as a key to understanding the killer's methodology and predicting the next target. This combination of logic and foresight allows him to anticipate actions and stay one step ahead of criminals. Poirot also applies logical reasoning to physical evidence with incredible precision. Every misplaced object, scratch, or footprint is examined in relation to the timeline of events. He often reconstructs the crime in his mind, visualizing each suspect's movements and testing possible scenarios against observed facts. Through this process, he can eliminate impossible scenarios and focus on what is logically feasible, narrowing the field of possibilities until the truth becomes inevitable. Another aspect of Poirot's genius is his ability to connect seemingly unrelated details. In Death in the Clouds, a murder occurs aboard a plane with multiple passengers, each with plausible motives. Poirot notices minor clues, a cigarette stub, a peculiar odor, a slight discrepancy in testimony that seem insignificant in isolation. Yet, when he examines the case holistically, these details form a coherent pattern that reveals the identity of the murderer. This demonstrates his ability to synthesize fragmented information into a complete, logical solution. Poirot's systematic methodology also extends to interviews and interrogations. He observes patterns in speech, hesitation, and behavior, integrating these psychological cues with factual evidence. By testing hypotheses, creating controlled situations, and monitoring reactions, he can confirm or refute his deductions with remarkable accuracy. This method ensures that his conclusions are based on both logic and empirical observation, rather than mere intuition or guesswork, even when cases involve multiple layers of deception. Poirot excels by maintaining a disciplined and methodical approach. Each suspect, motive, and opportunity is analyzed independently, then cross-referenced to detect inconsistencies. Through iterative reasoning, he refines his understanding until the complex puzzle resolves into a clear, logical narrative. His mind operates like a perfect machine, balancing observation, deduction, and pattern recognition simultaneously. Part 6 emphasizes that Hercule Poirot's genius is not accidental. It is the product of a disciplined, structured mind capable of seeing beyond chaos to the underlying order of events. His ability to recognize patterns, reconstruct sequences, and analyze complex relationships between facts and behaviors sets him apart as a detective of unparalleled skill. In Poirot's world, no case is too intricate, no puzzle too complex, because his mind can identify the hidden order that others cannot perceive. Less an extraordinary detective, while Hercule Poirot is often remembered for his solitary brilliance. Another key element of his success lies in his careful use of collaboration and trusted allies. Poirot never acts recklessly alone. He knows that even the greatest mind benefits from support, whether in gathering information, verifying observations, or analyzing details from different perspectives. His interactions with others are deliberate and strategic, allowing him to maximize the strengths of those around him while maintaining control over the investigation. One of Poirot's most significant partnerships is with Captain Arthur Hastings, a loyal companion who serves as both assistant and sounding board. Hastings is not as intellectually formidable as Poirot, but his perspective is invaluable. Poirot often uses Hastings to test theories, observe human reactions, or serve as a proxy for ordinary reasoning. Through Hastings, the audience and suspects alike see the detective's method from a fresh viewpoint. In cases like the murder of Roger Ackroyd and the mystery of the Blue Train, Hastings provides both practical assistance and insight into human behavior, enabling Poirot to explore angles that might otherwise go unnoticed. Poirot's collaboration extends beyond a single assistant. He frequently works with law enforcement, private investigators, or witnesses, subtly guiding them to uncover information without revealing the full extent of his reasoning. He understands the psychology of cooperation. People respond more openly when they feel respected, and when their observations are valued. Poirot leverages this insight to extract critical details, often encouraging reluctant witnesses to speak or drawing out hidden knowledge without confrontation. His ability to orchestrate collaboration demonstrates his mastery not only of logic, but of human dynamics. In some cases, Poirot uses indirect collaboration to test suspects. He might stage scenarios, plant subtle suggestions, or observe interactions among groups to uncover hidden motives. By analyzing how individuals behave in relation to one another, he gathers clues that are impossible to obtain through direct questioning alone. This method is particularly evident in Murder on the Orient Express, where he observes group behavior and subtle interactions to untangle a highly complex, morally ambiguous crime. Here, Poirot demonstrates that collaboration is not only about allies, but also about the collective psychological patterns of all involved. Poirot's interactions are always marked by precision and strategy. He never underestimates the abilities of his assistants, law enforcement, or witnesses. Instead, he integrates their contributions into a larger framework of deduction. Every observation, no matter how small, is recorded, cross-referenced, and analyzed. This systematic approach ensures that even the simplest act of cooperation can yield significant breakthroughs. For Poirot, teamwork is an extension of logic. It enhances his methodical approach without compromising his analytical rigor. Another example of his collaborative genius is his partnership with Inspector Japp, a recurring figure in several cases. While Japp often provides access to resources, official authority, and procedural knowledge, Poirot complements this with insight into human nature and deductive reasoning. The combination allows Poirot to solve cases that would overwhelm ordinary investigators. Japp often marvels at Poirot's ability to synthesize seemingly unrelated information, and their interactions reveal the subtle balance between formal investigation and intuitive, psychological analysis. Collaboration also extends to the way Poirot engages with suspects, witnesses, and even bystanders. He understands that observation alone is insufficient without interaction. His carefully crafted dialogues and staged scenarios allow others to reveal truths inadvertently. He manipulates social dynamics with precision, creating environments where honesty naturally emerges while deception exposes itself. This demonstrates that Poirot's genius is not only in thinking, but also in influencing the behavior of others to bring hidden truths to light. Part 7 illustrates that Hercule Poirot's brilliance is amplified through strategic collaboration. By working with assistants like Hastings, law enforcement officials like Inspector Japp, and other individuals connected to a case, Poirot combines different strengths, perspectives, and insights. These collaborations are not random. They are meticulously planned and executed to maximize information gathering and analytical accuracy. Through these alliances, Poirot demonstrates that even the most brilliant mind can benefit from a well-structured network of cooperation, and that teamwork, when guided by intellect and psychological insight, can reveal truths that would otherwise remain hidden. Hercule Poirot's brilliance extends far beyond individual cases or clever deductions. His legacy lies in the very philosophy that guided his work. Poirot approaches every crime as a puzzle, not only of logic but of human nature. To him, understanding a criminal act requires comprehending the minds of those involved, the circumstances that motivated them, and the subtle interactions that connect evidence, behavior, and motive. His philosophy combines meticulous observation, disciplined reasoning, and profound insight into human psychology, creating a holistic approach to crime solving that remains unparalleled in detective fiction. Poirot's systematic approach begins with patient observation. Every detail, the placement of objects, the sequence of events, the tiniest physical clue, is scrutinized and evaluated. No element is dismissed as trivial. Even the smallest observation can connect to a larger pattern, revealing motives and sequences that might otherwise remain hidden. Yet his genius lies not merely in noticing details, but in synthesizing them into coherent explanations. He recognizes that truth is often layered, and only by connecting fragments across physical evidence, behavior, and human psychology can a complete picture emerge. Central to Poirot's philosophy is his understanding of human psychology. He knows that people are rarely consistent, that ego, fear, desire, and habit govern actions as much as logic. By carefully observing speech patterns, micro-expressions, body language, and emotional responses, Poirot deciphers hidden motives and detects deception. His ability to read people gives him an almost uncanny advantage. He can anticipate lies, predict behavior, and reconstruct events with remarkable accuracy. In cases like Death on the Nile or Murder on the Orient Express, it is this combination of observation and psychological insight that allows him to uncover truths that would elude even the most thorough physical investigation. Poirot also demonstrates a unique ethical dimension in his work. While legal justice is often the framework within which detectives operate, Poirot prioritizes truth and understanding over simple punishment. He evaluates each case with a moral sensitivity that acknowledges complexity and nuance. In situations involving multiple culprits, ethical ambiguity, or extenuating circumstances, Poirot's conclusions balance logic, evidence, and human understanding. This ability to integrate moral reasoning into criminal investigation distinguishes him from mere puzzle solvers and elevates him as a character of intellectual and moral depth. Another critical aspect of Poirot's legacy is his mastery of pattern recognition and logical deduction. He sees connections invisible to others, identifies sequences that seem coincidental, and reconstructs events with extraordinary precision. In the ABC murders, he recognizes an alphabetical pattern linking multiple crimes, demonstrating his foresight and analytical skill. In other cases, subtle inconsistencies in speech, minor physical anomalies, or behavioral patterns provide the key to unlocking mysteries. Poirot's genius is not luck. It is the result of disciplined reasoning, observation, and the systematic application of logic to complex human behavior. Poirot's collaborations further enhance his effectiveness. He works strategically with trusted allies such as Captain Hastings, Inspector Japp, and occasionally with other investigators or witnesses. These collaborations are not casual. They are calculated extensions of his method. Each interaction is designed to extract information, observe reactions, or test hypotheses. Poirot's ability to integrate the contributions of others while maintaining control of the investigation demonstrates his skill not only as a detective, but as a strategist, capable of orchestrating complex processes of discovery. Poirot's personal habits, often viewed as eccentricities, are integral to his methodology. His meticulous grooming, careful attire, and disciplined routines are not superficial. They reflect the order and precision of his mind. Just as he maintains control over his appearance and environment, he maintains control over his thoughts, systematically applying observation, deduction, and logic to every case. These habits reinforce the mental clarity necessary for tackling the most complex mysteries. Enduring legacy of Hercule Poirot lies not only in the thrilling cases he solved, but in the model he provides for problem-solving itself. His methods illustrate the power of disciplined thought, patient observation, and analytical rigor. He teaches that intelligence alone is insufficient. Understanding human nature, ethical judgment, and strategic collaboration are equally essential. Each case, from seemingly simple thefts to intricate multi-suspect murders, demonstrates a comprehensive application of reasoning, insight, and intellectual mastery. Finally, Hercule Poirot's place in literary history is secured by the combination of intellect, discipline, psychological insight, and moral reasoning that defines him. Agatha Christie created not just a detective but a phenomenon, a character who exemplifies the union of logic and humanity, observation and empathy. Poirot reminds us that solving a mystery is as much about understanding people as it is about uncovering facts, and that a brilliant mind, when combined with patience and ethical insight, can reveal truths that otherwise remain hidden. Part 8 concludes, the epic narrative of Hercule Poirot, a genius whose methods, philosophy, and mastery of deduction transcend individual cases to create a timeless symbol of analytical brilliance. From his earliest beginnings as a disciplined Belgian detective to his rise as one of the world's most renowned fictional sleuths, Poirot demonstrates that logic, observation, and understanding of human nature form the ultimate combination for solving even the most impenetrable mysteries. His legacy endures, inspiring generations to appreciate the power of intellect, the subtlety of human behavior, and the extraordinary potential of the little gray cells.